Phrasal verbs are verb plus particle. The particle is not optional and is a preposition in form. In relation with this meaning, we can say that it's not compositional or idiomatic. You can't figure out the meaning of the phrasal verb simply by putting together the meaning of their parts. In usage, we find it in informal register. Native speakers tend to favor phrasal verbs over the Latin one-word equivalent. For example, please put out your cigarette. Please extinguish your cigarette. Further in meaning, we find two semantic categories. Literal, stand up, sit down, pay back. You can easily deduce their meanings, but these are not the most common one. Idiomatic, show off, take after, check in. By seeing its part idiomatic phrasal verbs are hard to predict. Sadly, for ESL learners, they are highly productive. Phrasal verbs have a specific rule. This is a separation of phrasal verb. The separation is optional when direct object is not a pronoun. For example, turn the lights on, turn on the lights. The separation is necessary when direct object is a pronoun. For example, turn them on. You can't say turn on them. We said the particles are in fact prepositions. Let's have a look at this sentence. We can see that in the first sentence, the word of is part of prepositional phrase, that is part of adverbial, that is optional. In the second sentence, we see the word of as a particle, that is part of verb phrase, that is obligatory.
Distinguishing phrasal verbs from verb plus preposition sequences. Here we have the exact same sequence. The car turned off the road. The boy turned off the light. In the first sentence, the preposition of seems to be connected to the elements that are on the right. In the second sentence, the same preposition seems to be connected to the element that is on the left. This can be explained because a preposition makes a natural unit with the noun phrase that follows, as opposed to a particle, which makes a natural unit with the verb that precedes it. Being able to distinguish these two concepts is relevant to the following topic. This takes us to prepositions. Prepositions are free morphemes. They are not bound to any inflectional morphemes, even though we can find some diachronic exceptions, such as into and onto, which coalesce in time. However, we can find complex prepositions, consisting of two or more words that are still considered as prepositions, such as because of, out of, on top of. In terms of meaning, we can say that they are polysemous, therefore they are hard to learn, which makes it even more difficult when extending their spatial meaning to more abstract expressions. In terms of usage, we can say that they are function words, so their meaning contribution is little. However, we use preposition regularly, for many reasons. We use them to express spatial relationships. Also, we use them to express extended meanings that derive from these spatial relationships. And finally, we use them to express case, to mark roles that relate sentence constituents. He ran about the yard. We'll meet around 1 o'clock. About $1. A book about mathematics. Physical location, space, approximation in time, approximation degrees, and finally concerning, which includes other idiomatic expressions. These expressions go from more concrete to more abstract. But what about case? We will talk about that later. As for function, we can say that always a prepositional phrase is expanded as a preposition plus a noun phrase. Therefore, they can create noun adverbials, as in he gets up work at night, noun modifiers, as in the mayor of Philadelphia, and they can follow verbs, as in she is in school, and adjectives also, as in she is good at math. Keep in mind that if there is a pronoun next to a preposition, the pronoun should take its object form. So we say for me and to us, but we do not say for I to we. This takes us to case. There is something called semantics of case. As you can see, there are many cases in grammar. Let's take two of them and present them using the same preposition, by. It was composed by Tchaikovsky. We went there by bus. A semantic role is the underlying relationship that a participant has with the main verb in the clause. Now that we know all this, why is it relevant for us? What's the point of knowing it? There are some implications for us. As prepositions are part of phrasal verbs, it is difficult for ESL learners to see when the preposition is acting as such, or when it is acting as a particle. Therefore, we, as teachers, should make students as aware as possible of these subtle details. Both phrasal verbs and prepositions are mainly idiomatic and polysemous, which makes it even more difficult. So how do we tackle this? Consider that prepositions are originally used to locate things in space. More abstract expressions are derived from these meanings. Mastering the spatial relationships of prepositions is the first step to use them correctly. Use phrasal verbs regularly. Write them down as you encounter them. Using them meaningfully and in context is the best way to prevent students from getting confused about their polysemy and idiomaticity. Don't give definitions of the prepositions. They can be even more misleading than the prepositions themselves. Also, don't define prepositions using other prepositions. Use context instead. Any last suggestions? Don't despair. Even native speakers differ in its use. ESL learners should not be expected to learn all prepositions. Plus, not all meanings of prepositions are equally important. Some meanings are more frequent than others.